Celebi, the support with the worst ratio of getting into competitive matches versus actually getting picked. But did you know it has a use outside of allowing break-ins to play God?
Free will is an illusion. You play in the phase I decide. You are but an ant in my presence.
I think Celebi is currently a very overlooked counterpick to a specific character that a lot of the roster can make great use of. That character is Darkrai. Let's first go over what Celebi does. Celebi has a 40-second initial charge time and a 50-second recharge, which is as bad as it gets outside of a couple of the one-time only supports in the game. But since the battle timer in Pokkén is 80 seconds and 40 plus 50 is 81, if you wanted to get it twice in one round, you need to start that round off with it thanks to a cheer skill and end up using it within the first 30 seconds of the match. And however long it takes to use at the beginning of the match is time you won't have to use it at the end. This, by the way, is all assuming that these rounds will go to time. A round ending 10 seconds early by KO is a round that you had 10 seconds less to use or even get Celebi to begin with. So unless you're one of the two characters that can speed up the support building process on their own, getting it twice in a round is either unlikely or at least too shaky for most players to want to plan a strategy around. But what does Celebi actually do? Surely for a support that takes so much setup, it must do something game changing, right? Well, kinda. It gives you counter armor on the first frame that lasts for the entire attack, which is a giant hitbox that pierces CA and goes through shield. And instead of dealing damage like a normal support, landing this instantly wins you the phase. But,
oh no!
It takes nearly a full second for the hitbox to come out, and in that time you can't act. Which means that in that time they can move out of range, grab, or pierce you. So you have to choose your spots for Celebi very carefully. It covers and loses to a very unique set of options compared to the rest of the popular support choices. So on top of its already niche utility, it often takes a lot of trial and error before even experienced players will feel comfortable enough using it to see results. That's why in this video I'm going to go over all the tricks I've picked out for using Celebi effectively versus Darkrai. First, it's important to understand why you're running Celebi to begin with. Celebi's primary use in this matchup is to escape Darkrai's Nightmare mode, and if you don't know why Nightmare is just a peach to deal with, here's a crash course. He gains two new specials called Drill and Dream Eater. Drill is a reversal option that gains invincibility on frame 5, but it's punishable and blocked by every character. The combination of how long the attack lasts and how fast it gets invincibility makes it really good at stuffing stuff on reaction. Dream Eater is a command grab that deals 180 damage, builds 50 CC, and heals 30 HP. Which is ridiculous. And it just so happens to be complemented really well by Nightmare's combo pass, so you get to use it all the time as a really good ender. His Fireball gets 2 extra hits, which makes it better on hit, counter, and block, as well as dealing more chip and damage. Instead of laying down rifts for later, any move that places one will automatically activate it, making these moves better on counter, block, and whiff, as well as creating way more combo opportunities. Using rifts also gives him orbs, so these moves being much better in Nightmare naturally makes him very proficient at building them. And when he gets 4 of them, he can spend them on his bow, which heals 60 recoverable health, gives him 8 seconds of attack and defense buffs, and 30 CC of synergy. Or he can spend it on a big ol' safe on block move that deals 60 chip, pierces, and does big damage. His dashes get a lot of invincibility, and his forward dash can cross through the other player, allowing him to cross up inputs and punish stuff that would otherwise be pretty safe. He even gets to cancel several of his moves into this invincibility, even on whiff. First things first, you need a plan for how you're going to get Celebi. You can run cheers that allow you to start some rounds with it, but that won't be every round. You're going to need a plan for the times you don't have it. Thankfully, the way Darkrai's field works happens to be perfect for if you want to stall to get your support gauge. The idea is to stay at a safe range and then just walk around and CADC when you can for meter. This will either force Darkrai to approach you, or it will let you build your support gauge. Once you're pretty close to getting Celebi full, start looking for an opening. How you do this is probably going to depend on your character, but it's most likely going to involve you running up and forcing a mix-up. If they win field and get Nightmare, you have an out. And if you win field, you can always save it for if they get Nightmare later on in the match. One thing that's important to keep in mind when trying to land Celebi versus Nightmare Darkrai is how fast he is, since he's in the first tier for both forward and backward walk speed in dual phase. This is important because it means you have to pay very close attention to your spacing when using Celebi so that he can't walk out of the way after you call it. This strength of his leads me into my first trick for using Celebi versus Nightmare Darkrai. One of the best things you can do when they're in Nightmare and you have Celebi is to try and walk him to the wall, because if there's a wall behind him, there's nowhere to run. Keep in mind that Darkrai is also capable of teleporting through you to avoid Celebi if he can get close before you call it, but since their back is against the wall, you can call it from much further away without fearing them backing out of range. The other way you can use Celebi is when you think they're going to use a zoning option in mid-range. You obviously have to be very careful about when you go for this read, but if you're right, you get out of Nightmare. And the really important part is that being willing to make that read forces them to play differently. Suddenly, all of their oppressive tools put them at risk of losing Nightmare mode. Adding that kind of weight to Darkrai players' risks alone can slow them down enough to give you openings without even needing to actually use Celebi. These two tricks complement each other. If they're scared of Celebi, they're going to try to give themselves more space so it's not a threat, and you can use that to your advantage. When they hold back, you hold forward. If all goes well, eventually they'll either corner themselves, or they'll have to fight in mid-range, both of which leaving them open to your potential Celebi call, allowing you to save yourself from the nightmare that is Nightmare. Hey, are you new to Pokkén Tournament DX for the Nintendo Switch and looking for the community? Well, look no further. The community hub's its Discord, and you can pretty much always find someone online that's willing to help answer your questions. Join it.
Coward.